Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking on a true monument in the world of effectiveness.
A big one.
Yeah, a really big one. A book that sold tens of millions of copies and is still, profoundly influential. The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People.
Right, and our mission here isn't to just skim the surface.
No.
The goal is to really shortcut that learning curve and pull out the foundational framework, the operating system, if you will, that makes the whole thing work.
We're looking past the techniques and focusing on the principles underneath. Why has this book had such lasting power?
Well, it's been described as being as relevant and timely today as it was 25 years ago.
Mm.
And I think that's because it's not a self-help fad. It's really an articulation of enduring universal truths.
Applied to leadership and just principled living.
Exactly. It took all this accumulated wisdom from thinkers like Benjamin Franklin or Peter Drucker and turned it into a coherent, user-friendly framework.
And that framework, it's designed to tackle those really deep-seated problems, the ones that quick fixes just can't touch. Think about it. Maybe you're that person who's achieved massive career success. You've got the title, the office, the money.
Everything you thought you wanted.
Exactly. But you look up and realize that the relationships that really matter most, with your family or your friends, they've just withered. You won professionally but failed personally. That gap is just agonizing.
Or what about the constant cycle of self-improvement failure? You start the new diet, the new exercise routine
You're all psyched up. Positive mental attitude.
for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you just relapse completely. You
Yeah.
can't seem to keep a promise to yourself, and it leaves you feeling frustrated and depleted.
There's also the person who's just constantly busy. I think we all know this feeling. You're moving from one urgent thing to the next, but deep down, you have this sense that you're lacking any real long-term meaning.
You're running on the treadmill.
Yeah, producing results, but the work just feels hollow.
And then there's the other side of that coin. The person with the forceful, commanding personality who always gets their way.
Controls every interaction.
But they walk away feeling uneasy, always wondering what people really think about them behind their back.
Those are deep, painful problems. And the source material tells us they all share a common root.
An outside-in approach.
Yeah.
We're trying to fix a faulty foundation by, just patching the roof.
Right. And to understand that, we have to go back to this foundational shift. He talks about the central conflict.
The character ethic versus the personality ethic. This is the critical starting point.
So before, say, World War I, success literature was all about character.
Overwhelmingly, success was defined by who you were on the inside. We're talking about integrity, humility, fidelity, courage, patience.
Primary greatness.
Yes, primary greatness, your character, which then hopefully produced secondary greatness, like recognized talent.
But then after World War I, everything changed. Mass communication, advertising.
And the focus of success literature just shifted dramatically. It became all about what he calls the personality ethic.
So it became about surface level stuff.
Exactly. Public image, communication skills, techniques, presentation, and of course the positive mental attitude. It was the fast-track approach.
And some of those techniques, when you read about them, they feel, inherently manipulative, right?
They do. The material points out that it often promotes these quick fixes, like feigning interest in someone's hobbies, just to get what you want from them.
Or using psychological power strategies to override someone's will.
The promise is that you can adopt the appearance of effectiveness without doing any of the hard internal work. It's like trying to be a good actor.
Like using theatrical skills to fake sincerity. But if you don't have that foundation of integrity, it's always going to feel hollow. It's going to fail eventually.
It's symbol without substance. Now, the book acknowledges that charisma, communication skills, these things are beneficial. They're secondary traits.
But only if they're built on a solid foundation.
Right. If they're built on duplicity, they can't sustain long-term effectiveness. You're trying to harvest where you haven't sown. You're using techniques to compensate for a lack of character.
And that just leads to chronic disappointment.
Because you're trying to get the fruits of primary greatness like genuine trust and respect without paying the price of the root, which is internal integrity.
That distinction is so critical. It explains why the quick fix approach fails. You're putting cosmetics on a structural problem. To fix the structure, you have to change your view of reality itself.
Which brings us to the first major section, the power of paradigms.
The power of paradigm.
If the character ethic is the foundation, then our view of that foundation, how we see reality, is our paradigm.
A mental map.
Essentially, yes. A mental map. We all carry these maps around, and they dictate how we interpret everything.
We have maps for how things are and maps for how things should be. The problem is we forget they're just maps.
We think they're the actual territory. That's the core danger. We interpret every single experience through these maps, and most of the time, we aren't even aware we have them.
We just assume the way we see the world is the world.
That our perception is objective reality.
And the analogy that really drives this home is trying to navigate a new city. Let's say you need to find an address in Chicago.
But you're using a map of Detroit.
It's totally futile. Your attitude could be great, you could try harder than anyone, but
If the map is wrong, your diligence only gets you lost faster. The first non-negotiable requirement for effectiveness is an accurate map, aligning your paradigm with reality.
how do you even become aware of your own maps? They're so deeply embedded.
Well, this is where that famous psychological demonstration comes in. The young woman, optical illusion. It's so illuminating.
Ah, right.
She shows the power of conditioning in a matter of seconds. In the experiment, you have two groups. One group sees an image of an old, haggard woman for just a few seconds. The other sees an image of a young, attractive woman.
And then they're shown the combined image, the ambiguous one.
The exact same set of lines and spaces, and they're asked to describe what they see.
And instantly, they see what they were conditioned to see.
Precisely. And if you ask them to talk to each other, they start arguing immediately. The person seeing the young woman is insisting, she's 22, beautiful, wearing a feather boa.
And the other person is shouting, are you blind? She's 70, maybe 80, and she looks miserable.
They're arguing over objective facts, black lines and white spaces, but their interpretation, their perception is completely different, all because of 10 seconds of prior conditioning.
And it's frustrating because they're both sincere, clear-headed people. They just cannot reconcile their views.
That's the crucial takeaway. It's not about smart people versus fools. It's that sincere people can see things differently based on their conditioning. And the principle is so profound. We see the world not as it is, but as we are, or as we are conditioned to see it.
So every time we open our mouths to describe the world,
We're actually describing ourselves, our own internal maps. We're projecting our worldview onto others.
so if we really want to change, forcing a change in behavior is the hard way. The real leverage is changing the perception.
Changing the map. That's what creates a powerful, instantaneous shift, a paradigm shift.
It's a quantum leap.
Because suddenly, all the facts make sense in a totally new context.
Yeah.
And the most famous anecdote for this is the subway story.
Oh, yeah. This one perfectly captures it. How quickly judgment can turn into compassion just by changing the frame.
So the author is on a peaceful New York subway. A man and his kids get on, and the kids are, well, they're out of control.
Screaming, throwing things, just disrupting everyone.
While the father just sits there, completely passive, staring into space.
And the author is, understandably getting more and more irritated. He's judging this father so severely.
Right. What kind of discipline is this? Why isn't he controlling his own children?
And finally, he just boils over and leans over to the man, probably a bit harshly, and says he needs to control his kids.
And that's the moment.
The paradigm shift.
The man looks up, almost as if he's coming out of a daze. And he says softly, "Oh, you're right. I guess I should do something about it. We just came from the hospital where their mother died about an hour ago. I don't know what to think, and I guess they don't know how to handle it either."
That is just utterly devastating.
Think about the effect of that one sentence. The author's entire emotional state, the irritation, the judgment, the aggression, it just vanished.
He didn't have to try to be sympathetic. It just happened.
The entire framework of the situation changed, and compassion flowed freely, spontaneously. His behavior changed instantly because his perception changed. He went from seeing an irresponsible father to a grieving man overwhelmed by tragedy.
So the most profound changes in our lives come not from forcing behavior, but from radically changing the map we use to see reality.
And that brings us to the ultimate test of map accuracy, the lighthouse principle.
The lighthouse principle. This dictates that our personal maps have to align with something external, unchanging.
Natural laws or principles. We have to acknowledge that these things exist whether we like it or not.
And the story for this one is the battleship, right?
The classic story of the battleship demanding a course change. It sends a signal, "We're on a collision course. Advise you change course 20 degrees.
And back comes this calm, unyielding reply. Advisable for you to change course 20 degrees.
The captain, probably operating from a center of ego and position, escalates.
Of course.
He's furious. He sends another message demanding authority. "Send, I'm a captain. Change course 20 degrees. And the response is just as dry. I'm a seaman second class. You had better change course 20 degrees.
He must have been losing his mind.
So he sends the final threat. Send, I'm a battleship. Change course 20 degrees.
And the final humbling reply.
I'm a lighthouse.
The battleship had no choice. It had to change course.
Principles like honesty, fairness, human dignity, they are the lighthouses. They don't care about our moods or demands. They just are. If our internal maps aren't aligned with them, we will ultimately break ourselves against them. Our effectiveness hinges on acknowledging that external, unyielding truth.
Okay, so aligning with the lighthouse gives us the foundation. We're moving from a potentially wrong map to an accurate one. Now we start the journey of the private victory.
Moving from dependence to independence through habits 1, 2, and 3.
And the habits are sequential, right, a progression.
A progression of maturity. Just like a child has to learn to sit up before they can walk, we have to achieve self-mastery first. So dependence is the paradigm of you.
You take care of me, you make me happy.
And independence is the paradigm of I. I can choose, I am self-reliant, I am responsible.
Which, in our culture, sounds like the finish line. Independence is the goal.
It's a profoundly liberating and necessary goal, but the source material is very clear. It is not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is interdependence, the paradigm of we.
We can cooperate, we can create synergy together.
But here's the absolute crucial insight that links the private victory to the public victory.
What's that?
Interdependence is a choice only independent people can make.
Why is that so important?
Because if you're a dependent person, emotionally, intellectually, you just don't have the fundamental character or self-possession to choose a high-trust, mutually beneficial relationship.
So if my sense of worth comes from your opinion of me,
You can't genuinely contribute. You're too worried about what you can get out of the relationship. You need the other person to validate you.
so the private victories habits 1, 2, and 3 are essential for that self-mastery, for that character strength.
So you can then genuinely choose interdependence, which we see in habits 4, 5, and 6. You cannot invert this inside-out process. You just can't.
So let's start with that first step of self-mastery. Habit 1, be proactive.
If the lighthouse is reality, proactivity is realizing we're the ones who get to write the script for our response to that reality.
It all comes down to responsibility, the ability to choose your response.
Yes. Proactive people recognize they're not just products of their environment or their genes. They subordinate their impulses and feelings to their core values.
They're driven by conscious choice, not just by conditions.
But most people, when things get tough, they gravitate toward external blame. This is the challenge of determinism.
Right, the world is full of these social maps trying to convince us we're victims.
And you can group them into 3 models. First, there's genetic determinism, blaming your biology.
I have a temper because my grandfather did. Or I'm just not a morning person, it's in my DNA.
Then there's environmental determinism, blaming the outside world. My boss drives me crazy. I'd be happy if my spouse were just different. The environment controls the response.
And the third one, which can be the most pervasive and painful.
Psychic determinism, blaming your childhood conditioning. I am the way I am because of what happened when I was 5. My parents gave me a limiting script, and I'm stuck with it.
And all these models are based on the stimulus response theory.
Which works pretty well when you're studying animals, but it fails to capture what makes us uniquely human.
So what's the crucial space that exists for humans that doesn't for animals?
It's the discovery of the ultimate human freedom, which is most powerfully documented by Viktor Frankl.
The psychiatrist imprisoned in the Nazi death camps.
He endured the most unimaginable suffering. He was stripped of everything, possessions, work, dignity. His entire family, his body, his environment were completely controlled by his captors.
And in that state of absolute external control, he discovered something about internal freedom.
He realized that even when faced with absolute horror, the Nazis could not control one thing.
The space.
The space between the stimulus, the abuse, the suffering, and his response to it. He discovered the last of the human freedoms, the power to choose his attitude.
How did he even do that in such an awful place?
He used his human endowments, self-awareness, imagination, conscience, to mentally transcend his environment. He chose how the suffering would affect him. He would project himself out of the camp, imagining himself years later on a lecture stage, teaching students the very psychological lessons he was learning in that moment of torture.
He wasn't denying the pain, he was choosing the frame.
And by exercising that tiny embryonic freedom, he found meaning and dignity. He became an inspiration. He proved that our ultimate happiness isn't dependent on external conditions, but on our choice of response. He carried his own weather with him.
That's the ultimate definition of proactive living. Even when you control nothing externally, you have total control over your response internally.
And we apply this practically every day when we look at the circle of concern versus the circle of influence.
Oh, okay.
Reactive people let their circle of concern, all the things they worry about but can't control, like politics or other people's faults, dictate their emotional energy.
And their circle of influence, the things they can change, shrinks.
Exactly. The proactive person does the opposite. They focus their energy on what they can actually do something about, their own behavior, their attitude, their preparation.
And by focusing on the controllable things, that circle begins to expand.
Right. Even problems that seem external, like a conflict with your spouse, are approached proactively by changing your own methods of influence, not by waiting for the other person to change.
And you can actually catch yourself being reactive just by listening to the language you use.
The proactive language test. Yeah, language is a mirror of our paradigm. Reactive language is victimizing. It's, I have to, I can't, he makes me mad.
It shifts control to the outside world.
Proactive language is empowering. It's choice-based. I choose to, I prefer, I can be more patient.
Let's apply that to something fundamental, like love. The man in the seminar who said, I guess I just don't love her anymore.
He's seeing it as a feeling, a passive state, and that's where the paradigm shift is required. He was advised that love, the feeling, can come and go.
But love is a value.
A value that is actualized through loving actions. The advice was to make love a verb. If the feeling isn't there, you choose to perform the loving actions, the sacrifices, the giving, the listening, and the feelings will follow. Proactive people subordinate feelings to values.
Okay, that's a demanding concept for Habit 1. Realizing we are the programmers. Now, before we get to Habit 2, writing the program, we need to define effectiveness.
Right, the PPC balance. This is the core operational paradigm for the entire system.
The goose and the golden eggs?
P is for production. The golden eggs, the desired results. PC is for production capability. The goose, the asset that produces the results.
And the problem is, society, especially business, tends to define effectiveness as just P.
Just how many golden eggs you get this quarter. It's a common but faulty paradigm. The farmer in the story killed the goose by focusing only on maximizing the eggs today.
Destroying the asset that produces the future eggs.
True effectiveness is the balance. Maintaining the asset PC while achieving the results. P. If you focus only on maximizing P and neglect PC, you're sacrificing long-term viability for short-term gain.
Let's apply this to a physical asset, like the lawnmower example.
You focus purely on P, getting the lawn mowed. Use it for 2 full seasons, no maintenance, no oil changes, no sharpening. You're efficient, but you're not effective.
And when the machine inevitably breaks down,
The engine has lost half its capacity. It's worthless. Effectiveness demanded investing time in PC, the maintenance, even though that time temporarily reduced your immediate output of P.
that makes perfect sense for a machine, but it gets much more critical and complex when we talk about human assets, relationships, organizations.
This is where most people fail dramatically, because the PT work is subtle. Take the parenting example. You want a clean room. P.
So you nag, you yell, you threaten, you get the result.
You might get the clean room, yes. But what are you doing to the goose?
You're undermining the child's internal commitment, their self-discipline, the health of the relationship itself, the production capability.
Precisely. You sacrifice the long-term character, PC, for the short-term result, P. And the reverse is also true. If you focus only on PC and just indulge the child, they grow up with no discipline. It's all about the balance.
What about in an organization? Companies that talk about being customer-centric, but neglect the people who actually serve those customers.
A classic PPC failure. Customers are the P, the revenue, the eggs. Employees are the PC, the asset, the goose.
If you treat your employees like expendable cogs.
You're sacrificing your future. The key insight here is the managerial paradigm shift to treat employees as volunteers.
Volunteers, even though they're on salary.
Yes, because you can buy an employee's hand and their back, their physical labor. But you cannot buy their heart, their loyalty and commitment, or their brain, their creativity. Those things are volunteered.
So if managers fail to invest in the PC of that human relationship through training, trust, genuine concern.
They breed resentment. They get employees who just punch the clock. And the quality of the golden eggs, it diminishes drastically when the goose is worn out and resentful.
Okay, so now that we know effectiveness is about balancing P and PC, we can move to habit 2. Begin with the end in mind.
Or, in our metaphor, write the program. This habit is the mental creation.
Based on the principle that all things are created twice.
First creation is mental, the vision, the blueprint. Second creation is physical, the execution. You visualize the house before you pick up a single piece of lumber.
And if we don't do that mental creation intentionally,
Then we become the second creation of other people's agendas, or circumstances, or old unconscious scripts. If we don't define what success means to us, the world is more than happy to define it for us.
which is why the central application for habit 2 is that visualization exercise, imagining your own funeral.
It's a powerful, sobering exercise. It forces you to touch your core values. You stand at the funeral, and you visualize 3 speakers.
Yeah.
Someone from your family, a friend, someone from your professional life.
And you ask yourself, what would I want them to say about me? What contributions would I want them to remember?
And it bypasses the superficial stuff. You don't want them talking about how efficiently you answered emails. You want them to talk about your integrity, your compassion, your impact.
This is the ultimate leadership moment.
It distinguishes between leadership and management. Management is efficiency doing things right. It asks, how fast are we cutting the brush?
But leadership is effectiveness doing the right things. It asks.
Are we even in the right jungle?
Back to the wrong jungle analogy. The manager is down in the brush, optimizing.
Sharpening their machetes, running productivity programs, being incredibly efficient. But the leader is the one who has to climb the tallest tree, survey the whole situation, and yell down, wrong jungle.
Because if the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall, every step you take just gets you to the wrong place faster.
And no amount of management success can ever compensate for a failure in leadership, a failure to define the right destination.
And defining that destination requires knowing your personal constitution, your center of life. This dictates our security, our guidance, wisdom, and power.
And if your center is unstable, those 4 life support factors will be unstable. The book explores a few common centers that, seem appealing but ultimately fail.
Like being spouse-centered or family-centered, we think of that as a good thing.
It seems virtuous, but when your entire security and worth comes from that relationship, it creates profound emotional dependence. Your sense of self is vulnerable to your spouse's moods or any conflict.
Your personal center is outside of you,
making you incredibly fragile. You become demanding of the very person you're in conflict with.
What about money, work, or possession-centeredness? That's so common in professional circles.
It results in a self-worth that just fluctuates wildly. If your identity is successful CFO, that identity is vulnerable to layoffs, to the economy, to retirement.
Your self-worth is constantly measured against others,
leading to endless comparison and anxiety over loss. People have literally committed suicide after losing fortunes because their internal self-worth was 0.
And what about the modern trap? Pleasure-centeredness.
It's driven by instant gratification, the search for the next bigger high. And while pleasure is vital for renewal, when it becomes a center, it offers no deep, lasting satisfaction.
Too much undisciplined leisure. TV, video games, escapism.
It dulls the mind and spirit. It wastes life and ensures our best capacities remain dormant. The pleasure-centered person is just constantly chasing a void.
Then there's the really fascinating one. Being enemy-centered.
This happens when someone feels they've been unjustly dealt with by an ex-boss, a rival. Instead of proactively leading their own life, they become completely preoccupied with that injustice.
They're constantly reacting to the enemy's perceived weaknesses,
which gives the enemy immense power. It allows that person or that memory to control their emotional life. They become defined by what they hate.
So if all these common centers are so unstable, where do we find stability?
The only center that provides genuine, lasting stability is the principle center.
Principles are the lighthouse.
They're universal, unchanging, external to us. They don't react, they don't get mad, they can't be destroyed by fire or theft. Centering your life on principles like integrity, contribution, fairness, that provides an unshakable foundation.
But how do you avoid that becoming a form of arrogance, where you judge everyone who doesn't follow your set of principles?
That's a critical distinction. Genuine principles are external natural laws, not just values we invent. If someone is truly principle-centered, they're focused on mastering the principles themselves,
not on judging others.
Arrogance often comes from centering your life on an institution, like a church or a social group, not the pure principles themselves. That creates an us versus them mentality. A truly principle-centered person is humble because they recognize the vastness of the natural laws they're trying to align with.
Okay, so habit 2 gives us the principle center, the mental creation. Habit 3, put first things first, is the physical creation. It's the day in, day out running of the program.
This is where self-discipline and integrity come in. Integrity here just means making and keeping promises, especially to ourselves.
It means prioritizing our actions according to the values from habit 2, which means you have to have the courage to say no.
Right. And the key tool here is the concept of the quadrant 2 focus.
The time management matrix.
Exactly. You sort activities by urgency and importance. Quadrant first, urgent and important crises, emergencies. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important interruptions, some calls, busy work. Quadrant 4 is neither.
But the truly effective life is found in quadrant 2. Important, but not urgent.
This is the managerial heart of the whole system. Quadrant 2 activities are things like prevention, planning, relationship building, long-term learning.
Sharpening the saw, which is habit 7.
Yes. These are the things that if you do them consistently make a massive positive difference. Focusing on Q2 creates quantum leaps in effectiveness.
The challenge is that quadrant 4 and quadrant 3 are loud. They work on you. They're demanding.
Quadrant 2 requires you to be proactive. We gravitate toward urgency because it gives us a feeling of being productive, what he calls the addiction to urgency,
People get rewarded for putting out fires in QI.
instead of being rewarded for doing the quiet, preventative work in Q2. But if you live in QI, you're constantly stressed, always one step from burnout.
The example of the shopping center managers really shows this.
Yeah. They were asked what one thing would make the biggest difference in their professional life, and they all agreed. Building helpful, personal relationships with the tenant store owners.
A classic Q2 activity. Important, not urgent.
And they realized they were spending less than 5% of their time on it. They were just consumed by QI crises and Q3 interruptions.
So when they intentionally shifted their time to QT,
They moved about a third of their time into that preventative space. They became consultants and trainers, building trust and relationships instead of just enforcing contracts.
and the result was that the number of crises.
It shrank dramatically. Their effectiveness went up fourfold, not by working harder, but by working on the right things, the roots, not the leaves.
But time is a zero-sum game. Where do you get that time for QT initially?
You have to have the courage to say no.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pull time out of quadrants 3 and 4. You have to say no to interruptions, to trivial busy work, and especially to things that are good but not the best.
The enemy of the best is frequently the good.
If you can't say no, your personal mission statement is useless. You don't have the independent will to execute it.
And habit 3 also introduces a better way of delegating, moving away from micromanagement.
The shift from gopher delegation to stewardship delegation.
Go for delegation is method-focused.
Right. Telling someone exactly how to do something, supervising every step. It's safe, but it kills initiative and creativity.
But stewardship delegation is results-focused.
It's empowerment. It requires a clear mutual understanding across 5 areas: desired results, guidelines, resources, accountability, and consequences. You focus on the what, not the how.
And the story of the father and the son with the yard illustrates this perfectly.
The father wanted the yard green and clean. That was the desired result. He took his 7-year-old son out, visually defined it, and then confirmed the stewardship.
How you get it green is up to you. Who's the boss? You are. Who's the judge? I am. He was building the son's internal commitment.
The crucial moment came later, when the father saw the son had forgotten to pick up some garbage. The reactive urge would be to revert to gopher delegation.
To yell, get over here and pick that up right now.
Exactly. That would have gotten the immediate pea, the golden egg, but it would have ruined the goose, the son's initiative. Instead, the father maintained his integrity. He respected the stewardship. He just reminded the son of their agreement.
And later the son asked for his help.
He asked his father to help remove the garbage that made the son sick to see. That action signed the agreement in the son's heart. He took genuine ownership. And the yard ended up greener and cleaner than ever before because the focus was on building capacity.
So the private victory habits 1, 2, and 3 establishes that integrity and independent will. Now we can cross the bridge to public victory and interdependence,
And that starts entirely with the foundation of trust,
which is modeled by the emotional bank account.
the EBA. It's a metaphor for the trust capital in any relationship. Deposits are things like courtesy, kindness, honesty, keeping commitments. Withdrawals are the opposite.
And if the EBA balance is high, trust is high. Communication is almost instant. Mistakes are easily compensated for.
Right. You can be a bit clumsy in your communication, but because the trust is high, the other person assumes good intent. If the balance is low, even a minor error is viewed with suspicion, leading to hostility and defensiveness.
So what's the most significant deposit we can make?
The single most important one is understanding the individual. This means subordinating your own agenda and applying your conscience to learn what a deposit is for the other person.
Because what's a deposit to you might be a withdrawal to them.
Exactly. A long conversation might be a deposit for you, but a withdrawal for your spouse who values quiet time. You have to understand their values, not just project your own.
And another critical deposit is integrity.
Showing personal integrity. It means treating everyone by the same set of principles. It means avoiding duplicity, like gossiping or betraying confidences.
Integrity is described as the highest form of loyalty.
And if you try to reverse that by bad-mouthing a third party to gain rapport with someone, that person knows that under different pressure, you'd badmouth them. It's a massive withdrawal from your integrity account.
People respect consistency. You might not always be liked, but you'll be trusted.
And trust and respect are the seeds of lasting influence.
This need to understand the individual leads directly into habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
This requires a profound paradigm shift because we normally listen with the intent to reply, not to understand. We practice autobiographical listening.
We filter everything through our own experiences.
And we immediately respond in one of 4 ways. We evaluate, we probe from our own frame, we advise based on our experience, or we interpret their motives based on our paradigm.
And when someone is trying to tell you their story, being met with your story just makes them feel unsafe and judged.
It shuts down communication completely. This is where the medical diagnosis analogy is spot on. You would never trust a prescription from a doctor who didn't diagnose you first.
So we can't prescribe effective solutions until we genuinely empathetically understand the other person's perspective.
It's about giving people the psychological air they desperately need. When people feel safe and heard, their defenses drop and they become open to influence.
And that builds massive trust in the EBA, which makes the final public victory possible.
Habit 6, synergize. Creating the third alternative.
This is the highest activity in life where the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts.
Synergy, where 1 + 1 is greater than 2, happens when people value their differences and subordinate their old scripts to search for a new alternative that's superior to either original idea.
And you can't do it without habit 5.
You can't synergize if you haven't first understood the other party's unique perspective.
Let's use the vacation conflict example. The husband wants a fishing trip. The wife urgently needs to visit her ailing mother if they compromise.
They split the difference. 3 days fishing, 3 days with her mother. But the husband feels guilty, the wife feels rushed, and the relationship is diminished. Synergy avoids that.
It requires them to sit down and understand the deep needs, not just the surface desires.
The husband wants family, togetherness, and relaxation. The wife needs quality time with her mother.
And by pooling those underlying needs, they find the third alternative.
They might find a solution they never considered. Camping and fishing in a scenic area that's close enough to the mother's house for the wife to maximize her time there every day, while the kids and husband still get their outdoor trip.
The result is a better vacation and a stronger relationship, PC.
Synergy unleashes creative energy. It transforms resistance into a platform for innovation.
So this framework, it's a complete path for transformation, correcting paradigms, achieving self-mastery with habits 1, 2, and 3.
And then building high-trust relationships and creating synergy with habits 4, 5, and 6.
And the resounding message is the inside-out approach.
You cannot invert this process. You can't achieve public victory, genuine success with others, if you haven't first paid the price of private victory.
We influence our circumstances most powerfully by working on what we are.
As Frankel showed, our response to what happens to us is what defines us, not the event itself.
And this whole system requires constant maintenance, which is habit 7, sharpen the saw.
Continuous, balanced renewal of the 4 dimensions of our nature: physical, spiritual, mental, and social-emotional.
It's the key to sustainability.
And it's the ultimate quadrant 2 activity. Important, but never urgent.
And because it's not urgent, it's the first thing we neglect. It's why we burn out, get sick, or see our relationships fray.
Exactly. We neglect the saw, and our ability to cut wood diminishes until we're exhausted. To maintain the capacity to practice the other 6 habits, we have to schedule a daily private victory, at least an hour a day for this balanced renewal.
This continuous QCI investment makes everything else possible.
And prevents the decline into QI crises.
Okay, so if we were to leave our listener, the learner, with one final challenging thought that builds on this profound framework, what would it be?
It would have to be the author's final provocative message to those who think they've already achieved their peak. The challenge to live life in crescendo.
Crescendo. The increasing intensity and volume in music.
It means refusing the temptation of the diminuendo, refusing to slow down, back off, or play it safe once you've hit a certain age or level of accomplishment.
The most important work you will ever do is always ahead of you.
Never behind you. The challenge is to continually expand your contribution, seek new challenges, and commit to a life of increasing intensity and impact, regardless of your past successes.
That leaves us with the ultimate proactive question for you to take into your own reflection time.
What is life now asking of you?